Boom. Recording in progress, Gordon.
Indeed, it is. And
You-
good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. We're live
Mm.
from LA.
If only.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I want to go. Yeah,
A
Little
Lincoln
Lancaster,
alternative.
Little Lincoln Alternative. So, right. So we're now doing what's it called?
So it's neurodivergent,
Yeah,
more than a label.
more than a label.
Indeed.
And so
And
today we're going to talk about. Did I?
well, I think it was, yeah, you say it because you've
I've
got
got
it
it.
written down. I'll forget it.
I've got it written down. Is the world ready for neurodivergent people to be themselves? So,
So we're talking about the world. Well, the title itself is huge, never mind the world.
yeah, yeah,
It's a
definitely.
huge subject.
Yes, massive.
But it can all be summed up in one word, and then that's the end of the podcast. No.
No, they're not ready. So it came from the idea came from several things that have happened to me and several things that I've seen and heard and several things that I say and do in my workshops.
Hmm.
So it's definitely there. It's definitely there. Also, there are a lot of people that disagree with me, which is always good fun, isn't it? Um,
It's nice to be disagreed with from time to time because
I
it keeps you on your toes.
I think it's great. It's great to be disagreed with because, um, unless it's Robert F. Kennedy, but we won't start on him again. Well, is Robert F. Kennedy ready for neurodivergence?
Maybe not.
No, maybe not. He's going to cure everybody. So, right, okay. So, uh, I'm going to start you off. So, this week, myself and one of our pact members went down to Cambridge to meet Professor Simon, Professor Sir Simon Baron Cohen, who is pretty much one of the top autism specialists, certainly in this country and possibly the
Yeah, yeah.
world. And he wanted me to do a talk about masking for, I think they were his PhD students. And I said to Stevie, one of our fabulous supporters at Pact. She said, "That sounds interesting." And I just went, "Yeah, do you want to come?" And she went, "Can I?" And I went, "Yeah, of course." So I emailed them, and of course you can bring someone. So we went along, and it was a talk about masking. It was a talk about masking. It was an hour's talk, 30 minutes, quick Q&A. And I did my talk, and I talked about how difficult masking is for neurodivergent people and
Hmm.
what effects it has on them. And with that being what it was, now let me think about this. The difficulty is that masking, yeah,
Yeah,
is masking takes a lot out of you.
yeah. It exhausts you.
Yeah. And so masking takes a lot out of you. And therefore, the best state of being for a neurodivergent person is to be themselves.
Mm.
Go on.
I'm going to say, yeah, it is to be themselves. However, that can also be exhausting because of the fight you have to be yourself.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're absolutely right. One of my students, I mentor students and usually university students, and I've got one on at the moment. In the last half hour, has said to me, a guy that he was working for, he's a young man, he's first year degree, and he's autistic. And he said one of the guys he had a job working for this bloke, and he said this guy said to him, "Can't you just be now? What does he call him? Not normal." Uh, Can't you just be boring? No, yeah, there's something like that. Can't you just be boring for just 1 week? You know,
Gosh.
which was an interesting. And I said, I hope you told him to do one. He said, no, I didn't do that, Andrew. But um, so yeah, it's hard work. It's really hard work. So um, so this brought up then from there saying, that masking is the is hard work, and therefore it should be easier to be yourself. Most autism advocates advocate for autistic being themselves, but also that we have now Professor Baron Cohen brought this up. He said, "What about ABA, which is essentially teaching autistic people to be neurotypical or to behave in a
Mm.
neurotypical way?" And that's when it came up, and I said, "I don't think the neurotypicals are ready for this." That's when it came up. And then Stevie piped up. Stevie basically said the same thing, you know. And so I thought me and you could have a little chinwag
Yeah,
about
yeah.
this.
And it's interesting you mentioned ABA because I don't think ABA is the answer.
No,
In terms of it's when I looked into it and saw some of the things, it's almost like training your dog to behave in the way that you want them to.
yeah,
And half starve them, make sure they want a biscuit, and they're coming to you to get their little treat. So they do as a toad and well done.
yeah,
And that's where I've seen ABA
yeah.
going down the road of, which really is disgraceful.
So I kept my bottom firmly on the fence
Okay.
because my job is to enable people to have, under those circumstances, to have conversations.
Yep.
You know, I'm not keen myself, and I like your metaphor. Um, I think I think it's really, it's really quite true. Professor Baron Cohen did not give his opinion,
No.
but he asked about it. I was very interested because immediately he asked the question. It was not a question that I was expecting from him, not because of the controversy of ABA, but because he should know all this. So I don't know if he was testing us out or
Hmm. But
just
but
trying, yeah.
should he know all of it? Should he know it?
Well,
Because
he's pretty up there, isn't he?
he should have an understanding to a degree of that, but maybe his focus isn't down that area, and maybe he was generally asking. I've heard about ABA, and
Mm,
maybe he hadn't wasted his time looking at that because of the other research and stuff. Is I don't know. Right? It'd be an
it could
interesting
be.
question to ask him, wouldn't it?
I mean, he's the person famous for extreme male brain theory.
Yes.
Not everybody likes that either,
No.
and I mean, as you know, I incorporate it into a lot of my work.
We
Uh,
do. Um,
yeah,
but I think certainly the way you explain it, I've not heard how Simon, Sir Simon Barron,
yeah.
describes it.
People,
However,
Professor Sir Simon. I don't know. I don't know.
yeah, but
Symes.
maybe we should
He's
say
just Symes to me.
Symes. Yeah,
Yeah,
good old Symes,
yeah. Friend of the show. He's a friend of the podcast.
indeed.
Um,
Um, but the way you explain the male brain theory does seem to give that light bulb moment to a lot of
yeah,
parents,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
certainly adults who have just had a recent diagnosis. I think
Mm.
now that makes sense. And it's just the way it's explained. It's simple, isn't it?
It most certainly is, and I like it. And I think some of our workshops, um, need to be quite simple because we have to start somewhere. And a lot of people,
Sorry.
you're all right, it's okay. I hadn't even noticed you were gone. Some of our people, this is the first explanation they've had.
Yes.
I mean, for me, the introduction for me, the one that really had my light bulb moment, and I'd been to several things about autism before. I would say there were two. There was a talk by Ross Blackburn,
Yep.
who made perfect sense to me, and also an introduction to autism I saw at the University of Birmingham with Glynis Jones. And of
Right.
course, this was back in the days of the triad of impairments when there were just three things. And she laid it out in such a simple way that I ended up using that style for several years myself until everything changed.
Yeah.
And so yeah, there is a big argument for simple things, isn't there?
Almost definitely. And I think we can be guilty of trying to complicate something because of the complexities of it. When in actual fact, if we just keep it simple and get that understanding, it would be easier for other people to allow people to be themselves because it just makes more sense.
Mm,
Um, Getting caught up in, well, this person is so complex, etc., etc.
mm.
It makes me, oh, we can't have this. It's too much for us to take on. So therefore, we need to sort of keep an arm's length at it, really, instead of making the simple adjustments, which would make all the difference, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would absolutely agree with that. Yeah, definitely. Um, it's funny because recently, just recently, I was at I was at a it was a it was autism in the workplace, and I went to a
Mhm.
talk, and I was still picking up things, you know. And I'm not saying I'm Superman or anything, but at my level, you'll still pick things up, you'll still find new things,
Yeah,
and so yeah, definitely. But going back to our is the world ready? Yeah, I you know this story about my car when I put my car in to be fixed.
yeah,
So I've got an old car. It's sort of not quite a classic, but close enough. And I blew the engine up. And so the engine was gone. Could I get anyone to change the engine for me? Turns out it's not like the 80s anymore, Gordon. It's not like
mhm,
you used to get your transit van, drop one engine out, put another one in. It's not like that anymore. I advertised on Facebook, and a guy from Lincolnshire got in touch and said, I can fix your car for you. And I said, that's brilliant. He said, I can have an engine by this afternoon and we'll do it in 3 days.
yeah,
That's really good. And he gave me a price and I was happy. So we do all that and cut a very long story short, he he had it for 3 months. Not only did he have it for 3 months, but there was a pattern of behavior. And the pattern of behavior was, yeah, be ready Friday for you. And then Friday would come along and he would phone up with some, what I thought was a reason, possibly an excuse, turned out to be an excuse why he couldn't give it to me that Friday, why I couldn't collect it. And so I was getting more and more agitated and uptight. Um, and eventually I got in touch with him and I said, listen, I said, I appreciate you're busy, appreciate you doing the job, all these things. I still kind of believed him.
yeah,
And I said, I have a condition. So for people who are new to the show, I'm diagnosed severe ADHD. And I said, I've got a condition that causes me to be very anxious in certain situations. And this is one of those situations. I said, now I just want you to do one small thing for me is every couple of days or so, just drop me a text message to say where we're at. Yeah. I'm not trying to rush you. I just want to know where we're at.
yeah,
And I thought it was a reasonable thing. I told him about my neurodivergence and I was told him what he can do to help. This was a person is exactly my age. Yeah. And so I asked him this and he replied, it's people like you wasting everybody else's time.
wow,
Right. And I was shocked. I was shocked because I thought we lived in enlightened times.
mm,
And that was a real big um it was a big eye opener for me. It was a real big eye. I think I'd have still been just as upset if it had been you and you
yeah,
said you never guess what this bloke said to me because it wasn't actually about me. It was about ADHD. It was about neurodivergence, and it was about that and the shock that there are those people still out there
yeah,
who don't believe in it.
no.
And then you go back to our question for today: is the world ready for neurodivergence?
Well, I was speaking to a young man 3 weeks ago now, it was.
Mm,
And I went across to see him because he's been let go from his second employment
mm,
um, for being himself.
mm,
And the first one he was doing a job he loved. He'd been in it for a long time, and he is very black and white. There is no grey,
Mm,
and he will say what he sees and everything else, but in a nice way. But it's not necessarily it's not an aggressive way of that, but it's not necessarily in the diplomatic way. It's just a matter of here's what it is.
yeah.
And he happened to say to his supervisor, "Oh, I think the way you're doing that's wrong. This is a better way. This works much better."
Mm,
Supervisor didn't like it,
right.
and ended up losing his job.
Mm,
Um, but actually, as you know, Sam was a bit like that with various things and would say, what you're doing doesn't make sense. There's a better way of doing it.
mm.
Here's this. And he would lose jobs and that because of it. But when you actually look at what they're saying and take the time to look at it, they
They're
are
right.
right. They are right. There is a better way, but we're just not prepared because we see this neurodivergent person, and it's no, you're doing as I'm telling you. I'm the
Yeah.
person here. What do you know? And actually, they can see things from a different perspective in a different way that would make life much, much easier. But because they don't communicate it in the way that we want them to, we sort of dismiss it.
So it's interesting because I have always held the opinion that particularly autistic people are the better communicators.
Mm,
You know, there's no, I had this discussion with an autistic person, by the way, who disagreed with me. So, uh, but, but, um, but, but actually, I feel that autistic people talk a lot of sense. And
yeah,
if you see me, I will say to people, tell me exactly what you're trying to say that, or I don't understand what you're trying to say. I'll be really out and open with that. I
yeah,
don't know what you're talking about. I won't beat around the bush. I won't pretend I know. I will ask. And 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 I feel that actually this is maybe a little bit controversial, but I feel that the world is, for want of a better word, and we know we struggle with the word neurotypical, the neurotypical world is not the best choice for the default setting.
yeah,
I think the default setting should be autism, ADHD, that kind of neurodivergent approach to life, because we get things done.
yeah,
I can remember this ADHD moment in a previous life, wife, girlfriend, mother of children. Um, she came home in her car and there was something wrong with the car. Yeah, something wrong with a wheel or something like that. And she's there Googling, oh, I wonder what this might be. And she's looking and doesn't know anything about cars, neither do I.
mm,
And the green flag arrived. She said, where did that come from? I said, I ordered it. What did you do that for? I said, because you were messing about with the car. You're underneath the car, you're Googling stuff. And I pay £100 or £50 a year or whatever I pay for this service.
yeah,
Actually, yeah, let's use that. Let's get that. And she was furious.
yeah,
So, and I'm there going, this is the most obvious thing.
yeah,
And that's an ADHD. Let's just do this thing, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Impulsive behavior. Impulsive behavior is not a bad thing, you know.
No, no.
You
But yeah, and but the other thing is you've taken away that challenge from me. How dare you?
I don't. I still to this day don't know what it was about. Actually, to be
No,
fair,
no,
if that's
no.
is that what you think it might be?
It could be, but it could also be as why didn't I think of that? Bloody hell.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe. But there you go. And
Yeah.
the guy came round with his big truck, fixed it, and everyone was happy. But or everyone but one was happy. Yeah.
Indeed. So again, I'll use this same young man. I don't know if he's listening. He
Do I
may
know
do.
him?
No, you haven't met him yet.
Oh, okay.
You will be doing it at some point.
Hmm.
Um, so he's sort of late 20s,
Mm.
And I asked him a question because he was talking about D and PIP and various other things. I say, oh, the sort of questions I'm going to ask you is, um, let's say something very simple about finance. Can you manage finance? I said, so they'll ask you like, you've got £10 in your pocket and you want to buy a new pair of jeans. So you go into the shop, you get a new pair of jeans. But on the same rack or the rack next to it, there's two jeans or there's jeans on special offer, two for £15 or one for £10. Which are you going to buy? So he's only got £10. So I thought that was a fairly straightforward
Yeah, yeah,
question.
yeah,
Well, it depends on the quality and the make.
yeah.
And are they going to be robust enough for the job that I want them for?
Mm.
And money didn't come into it. It was a
No.
matter of all these
Practicality.
other factors that he would
Yeah,
think about before any kind of finance. I say,
yeah.
okay, so what we need to look at is these are the best top quality things that meet your requirement.
Mm.
Which would you get? Well, I wouldn't get either because I haven't got the money to get the better deal, so I'd go online and research it first. Now, coming across as why are you being awkward?
Yeah, 100%. Why are you being difficult?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
he's not. This is his mind
Mm.
process of these are the things I have to work through before I can make a decision.
See, do you know what I was thinking about while you were saying all that? Coleslaw. Because coleslaw, I think Tesco, other shops are available. Um, I think Tesco are doing their coleslaw at 150 a pot or two pots for £2.
Yeah,
Trouble is, coleslaw goes off quite quickly.
he does.
It goes all fizzy and horrible. And so I'm like, I don't know what to do with the coleslaw. Do I buy two and hope we can eat them quick enough, which we never can?
Yeah,
And Mrs. Whitehouse will say, why have you bought more coleslaw? Or I can feel cheated and buy one.
yeah.
And that's a real problem, isn't it? For me, anyway.
It is, but again, if you go through the thought process, and that is two for one or whatever, but are they the same size, or is the one pot slightly bigger? And then you have to then look at the grammage and everything else to sort of say,
Yeah.
is this a good deal? It's not straightforward, is it?
It's not straightforward, Gordon. I don't like it.
No,
I really
no.
don't like it.
But it's a but I think the thing there when you're looking at is the world ready for us is that we're going to think of different things in a what looks to be a very simple, straightforward
Yeah, yeah,
question. The
yeah.
person receiving that question, we don't know where their head is at that minute in time and what their process is. And so therefore, if they don't give us what we want, they're automatically being awkward.
So there is no logical answer with the coleslaw or the jeans
No.
because the logical answer is both or none. So let's talk about the coleslaw because the coleslaw is different because it goes off, right?
Yeah.
So if I buy two, I'm paying more money, yeah.
Yeah.
But if I buy one, I'm being paying more money per gram.
Yes.
Same with the jeans. I could get two pairs of jeans for 15 quid, but I can only afford those. I'm going to feel cheated.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, okay, goodness me. Where did all that come from, by the way? That was absolute twaddle, wasn't it?
Well, it isn't, it isn't, but it just shows
Yeah, yeah,
you that um, we want a certain reply. We expect people to do things differently, and if it's not, we're going to get upset with people. We're going to think, "Why are you being argumentative with us? Why are
yeah,
you making this
yeah,
difficult?" We
yeah,
get frustrated,
yeah,
um, and although we're getting frustrated, the person I'm saying from the neurotypical side, so the other person is going to get very um, anxious, upset,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
frustrated themselves because why don't you understand what I'm doing? Why are you getting angry with me? Why is this going on? Um,
So
that can be
yeah.
difficult.
So I once had a conversation with an Asperger person who had a different opinion over what conversations should look like not just a conversation, just in general.
Yeah,
And a conversation for this person is I say this, then you say something about what I've said, and then I say something about what you've said, but sticking to the original subject.
Yeah.
So we could have a conversation, and that person could say, I like the Beatles. And then I could say, I like the Beatles too, but I prefer Elvis. And then she would say, but we're not here to talk about Elvis. And so this is very Asperger, which does exist, by the way. Come to one of our workshops, we'll tell you why. Um, but yeah, how can we, that person, their rigid thinking is basically going, this is supposed to be a conversation about the Beatles. Why the hell are you talking about Elvis? You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so uh, it can be difficult. I think in autism in general and other neurodivergences, you get more done. You know, it moves things stay on task a little bit better.
Yes. Yes.
You know,
Yeah. Unless you get distracted.
yeah, yeah, of course. But what I'm trying to talk about here is, look, we're talking about getting things done. Stop changing it. That was joke reference to. Okay, so I think things don't deviate quite so much, is what I'm saying. But then you're saying they do.
I think they can. I've been in
Mm,
meetings where you and again it comes down to the interest of the individual and are they in the right
mm.
setting and place for that conversation at the time?
Yeah,
Because if somebody's been brought into a meeting that they really don't want to be in, they're going to go off task. They're going to go off
yeah,
in different
yeah, yeah, yeah,
directions. If it's
yeah,
something that they're interested in, and you know, actually, this is the right person to come in here because they will drive this because they have the desire to do this because they are really, really focused, then yes, I agree, you will get to the end quicker because there is that drive.
yeah,
Um, and it comes down to your the give a shitometer
yeah, yeah. I was just
approach.
thinking about that actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
buy my book. It's on Amazon.
Indeed, well, it is. It explains an awful lot. I know it's about you, but when you read it, it just brings out. I saw my son and you in your
Mm,
book and that because they overlap. And you weren't writing the book about my son or anything like that. But there were so many things I could think. All right,
yeah,
yes. Um, but yes, things will get done. If my so. Sam, I apologize if you're listening. So we had to get something done that went wrong yesterday. There was an appointment being made. The people that were coming out to sort something for him sort of phoned up and said, "We're stuck in a job. We really can't get to you until later on in the afternoon."
yeah, yeah. I bet Sam loved that, didn't
He was not happy.
he?
He was
No.
not happy. You tell them, and then he went off on a tangent. This has got to be done. This has got to happen here. When it actually came to him coming round in that, they did a really, really good job and everything else, and he was very, very happy. Um, but the point was is that he had to sort of give all of this thing to sort of say, I need you to do something to get this done quicker than what they're saying. Even
Mm,
though we didn't really have an awful lot of choice. But we went back and said, can you come back and can I know this is it, but can somebody be around there by this time? Because this has to happen. Um, and they made it happen. But
mm,
he got angry and everything else. And
mm,
it didn't really matter because he gave an excuse of, yeah, we're doing this and this has got to happen here.
mm,
Well, actually, when it came to it and they went away, it says, oh, you're going out to get that thing done now. Oh, no, I'm waiting for a parcel first before I go and do that. But he didn't tell us that because he wanted this to fit in with
mm.
his
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
thing. And he got it done. And he didn't care about anything else. It was about, I need this doing it. I'm not happy about this. And
Mm.
wow, he was absolutely right.
It's partly the rigid thinking as he's made a plan and now his
Yeah,
plan's not working.
yeah.
That's partly, I would say. And the second part of it is that, you know, I think we expect things to work, and neurodivergent people really expect things to work. You
Mm.
know, I got up this morning and I had one job, and my job was to do a workshop with a woman from Skegness. Yeah, not the one you're thinking of, by the way, a
All right,
different
okay.
person from Skegness. To do a workshop with a person from Skegness, online support, and then that was it. And then I'd got pretty much the day to do what I wanted. I then remembered, I promised Gordon that I would do the podcast, this, what we're doing now, man who
Yeah.
keeps his promises. And so that changed things. I'd had a cancellation from one of my university students who then emailed to say, I can make it now, which meant that I had to get in touch with you, Gordon, and move you half an hour. Yeah. And so we'd got all these things going on. I then discovered that my emails are coming through to one device, but not another.
Right.
So all this stuff starts to happen. All this stuff starts to happen. And for a neurodivergent person, it's really difficult to manage. It's
Yeah.
really difficult to be making those plans change as you go along, you know? And I could totally see why Sam found that difficult to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, in my case, it still all sort of worked. Everything kind of fitted just about, you know. I mean, the 11 o'clock meeting, sorry, the 10 o'clock meeting had to finish bang on 11, and the 12 o'clock meeting had to finish bang on 12 because I needed to get something to eat before I came on with you. And all this stuff was going on. But ultimately, it fitted. Where the problems start is when you've got more, I would suggest that Sam's biggest problem was the parcel. I think that's where his problem lay,
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
that needed to be done as well. And there was an overlap,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
But
know?
again, it's change and people don't
Yeah,
understand how that
yeah, yeah.
affects. Um, and we need people to be understanding.
I was
Uh,
just about to say, how does this all fit into, is the neurotypical world ready for us? You
yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, you need people out there. And then you get the crazy neurotypicals, don't you? So, uh, I mean, I think you know this story. I don't think I've told it online about when I did a talk at Manchester City Football Club and
Yeah.
got stuck in the meeting room.
Yeah.
And so I will tell you this, yeah. I cannot listen to people doing talks. I just hate it. I mean, Gordon, I don't sit in and watch the talks even at our own conference, do I?
No.
I can't do it. I just can't do it. I know I can't do it. 58 years old. I've made my decision. I don't even try. Yeah. And in fact, it was funny because when we all went to the ICE
Ice
conference,
conference.
yeah, we were all sitting outside in the sunshine eating drinking cups of tea and stuff, weren't we? And
Yeah.
seem to remember ice creams. Did we have ice creams?
On the way back.
Oh, right, so it wasn't there. Right. But anyway, none of us went in. Stevie didn't go in. Genevieve didn't go in. I didn't go in. You didn't go in. Nobody went in. And so, because we're just not interested in that stuff, or we're interested. None of us can sit through that stuff.
No. We went in, but we slid out
Yeah,
bit by bit.
yeah, yeah. Stood at the back chatting and annoying everybody.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, so I was at this conference in Manchester and I did my talk and they led me off the stage after my talk. But where they led me to was the other side of the stage where there was no exit.
Yeah.
So to get out, I'd have to either walk through people, which had been impossible, or go across the stage in front of the person that was now doing the talk, which was interesting in itself because he's a guy that absolutely hates me. Name, name begins with F. So, no, yeah,
I think I know who you're talking about.
yeah. So anyway, um, so I didn't manage to get out. And then afterwards, I spoke to somebody about it who worked at the venue, and they totally overreacted.
Yeah.
They were absolutely in a place where they wanted to do the right thing by me and for me, but it was just too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I ended up with a crowd around me. How can we
Yeah.
help you? Do you want something to drink, sir? Can I get you a seat? But oh dear, go away. So that was that. And I had another one. This is another guy you know of, but you haven't met him. He's the father of an autistic young man. Lives
Yeah.
out in the sticks there. And I said, listen, I can't communicate the way you're communicating. I need you to be more ADHD friendly. Now, this is a guy that should know this stuff. So he got right up to me. He went, I want you to. And I'm like, oh man, when do I hit him? Now or later? You know, but you get the crazy people. You do
Yeah.
get the crazy people who are trying their absolute, and bless them, they are really, really trying.
Yeah, and I think they are, and I think it's also a fear of, have I done something to upset you, and I don't want to
Yeah,
appear to upset you, and
yeah,
how do
yeah,
I
yeah,
correct it? And they
yeah,
overcompensate.
yeah. I mean, I was working this week, last week, I was on a Zoom with a woman who is in education, who really, really should know better, is an absolutely lovely human being who really wants to help the neurodivergent world and the world of disability in general. And she used two words that I could not believe she used.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll quote them to you. Yeah. One was backward
Oh,
and one was spastic.
my goodness. Andrew, can we pause this for a minute?
Yeah. So we had to stop them for a second just because something cropped up. But yeah, going back to what I just said and what this person said, and I
Yeah, and
think Gordon.
it, it it sort of takes your breath away when you hear it, and you
Mm,
think, did I really hear that?
yeah.
And people are still saying these things. And I remember Rose Blackburn when she came to do the
Mm,
talk at the centre that we were at, it was
mm,
a few years ago. She said that people used to shout that out to her down the street,
mm.
and she would say, "Good try, wrong diagnosis, try
Yeah, I
again."
remember that. But the thing is, but those people were trying to be hurtful
They
and
were, they
yeah.
were
Whereas in this instance, this person, she was on the good side. She was not on the dark side.
indeed.
And actually, for me, my problem was, oh, now I've got to do something. I'm responsible now. I have to, because I've seen this, it's like your kids, isn't it? Your kids go to school. I remember once time Isaac said he saw someone threaten someone with a knife. I said, now you've seen it, now you're part of the story.
Yeah,
So, you are now responsible. And so, bearing in mind, what the first thing you have to think about is intent. So I was on a workshop and a guy, an autistic man, was speaking, and he talked about what do you do when people say these things, and he
yeah,
said I'd correct them as long as there was not malicious intent. So what I said was, and it's what I always say, I keep it light-hearted, and I would say, just need to nub in here. I'd hate to see you get in trouble. This is not the terminology that we use anymore. I would tell them the terminology depending on the situation, if and with my best knowledge. And usually people are very grateful for that.
yeah, yeah,
And the other one happened recently again. These things don't happen to me very often, but I've had like three in a couple of weeks. Was somebody who described Native American people as Red Indian.
yeah,
And again, you've got to stop and you've got to stop and you've got to say, actually, this is not the right words. this is not the right words, you know.
Mm.
So, and we don't want to cause offense. People were very, very grateful. They're
Yeah,
grateful you put them right.
I
But
think that is absolutely true in terms of if people don't get corrected
mm,
at the right time and
yeah,
it continues to go on and on, then people are being offended. They don't know they're offending people. People
yeah,
stop talking to them,
yeah.
and we get this disconnect. Whereas if you, as you quite rightly say, and I think it's very important, no matter what the particular topic that's being discussed at the time is, what finding out what is the intent, why was
Yeah,
that
yeah,
said, why was that done, why was this action taken, or whatever, what's the intent? Okay,
yeah,
right,
yeah,
so it's a lack of understanding, a lack of knowledge, a lack of
yeah.
whatever. Do you mind if I can give another suggestion as to what we could do here as things have moved on, or whatever the case may be, rather
So,
than saying you're wrong, that you can't say that.
so in reference to a big poster I've got on my wall, yeah. Meanwhile, back at the Go-Go,
Yes.
what is the neurotypical world ready for neurodivergence based on what we've just talked about?
Yeah. So do you want me to answer that or do you want
Yeah,
our
yeah, yeah, yeah,
audience?
yeah, yeah.
Right.
You're the
So
man. You're the man.
no, it's not. It's
So go on.
not. Purely because we're still in the thing of from going to school and being dragged through school and whatever way is,
Mm,
you will comply, you will do this, you will
yeah,
do that. Getting into the workplace, this is our rules, this is this here. And then allowing to sort of say, yes, we can do that with a few reasonable adjustments,
yeah,
but to still have to fight for reasonable adjustments, to
yeah.
me says the world is not ready yet because you have to fit into how we are. We're not going to adapt to anything, and it should be individualized, not or because you're autistic, because you're ADHD. It's I struggle with this as an individual.
Yeah.
Can you just do this for me?
So so you went a lot deeper into that than I was expecting, which is great because we had some brilliant information in there. But back to that terminology, those people, the person who used those words and the two different people who used the other words
Hmm.
were ready. They just needed the terminology.
Yes.
And if we are truly honest with each other, these words were probably in the general conversation in that person's lifetime,
Oh, undoubtedly,
and
undoubtedly.
you know, I mean, if Blackburn is having those things shouted at her, what, 15 years ago,
Yeah, yeah,
20 years ago, probably not, just maybe 15 years ago.
yeah. It was no longer than 15.
Yeah, therefore, that's something we have to make allowance for. What we don't want to make allowance for is people who are unwilling to change,
Yeah, yeah,
you know. And I read a quote of Kurt Cobain's, the singer from Nirvana. I don't like
yeah.
Nirvana. I think they're rubbish, but my kids like him. And he said something like, "If you are homophobic or racist," and he listed a whole load of things. He said, "Please don't buy my records or come to my shows." And that's how we should be.
Mm,
It's we got to have a zero tolerance to this stuff. We got to have a zero tolerance to this stuff, but not to the not to the onside uneducated. You can educate people as long as they want to be educated.
yeah, yeah. So I agree with the zero tolerance
Mm,
side of things, as long as we don't sort of when looking at it is we still have to first of all explore
mm.
why that opinion is there in the first place, uh,
Yeah, yeah, we do.
and engage for understanding. Uh,
Unconscious bias, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
We're looking for unconscious. We all have it. Yeah. The trick with unconscious bias is check yourself. Check yourself. Gordon, I've got something come through. if you don't mind me. I've had some feedback for the podcast,
All right.
which is exciting, something we don't get very often. So I'm gonna dig this out and okay, hang on. This person, I'm gonna edit it. I attended PAC, dear Andrew, I attended PAC last week and will be back this Monday. Took you up on listening to the podcasts and have been thoroughly enjoying them. Um, Loving all the supportive content and thank you for helping me understand me. That's from someone called Sarah.
Oh, nice.
And I just thought we've got to share that, haven't we? You
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, guess what? It's 12:30, 1:30.
Goodness. Wow, that flew.
I thought it was a good subject. We could do another
Yeah,
10 weeks on that, couldn't we? Are
we
they
could.
ready? Have you got a conclusion? Are they ready?
Well, I keep saying no, no, they're not.
Okay.
Everybody else will say that, but there is a lot of people that are, and I
Yeah,
think sometimes the ones that are being shot down by other people to sort of say, no, 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 you don't give in that way. No, no, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. So,
yeah.
again, peer pressure could be there, but in general, at this minute in time, no, I don't think we are there yet. It'd
Okay.
be nice to hear from anybody to sort
Yeah.
of say, are we wrong? Have you come across where
So
people are really ready?
be more
Or
like
are we right?
Sarah.
How do we do it?
Yeah, absolutely. Be more like Sarah. Talk to the show. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Me, slightly different opinion. I would say some are, some aren't. Just like anything in humanity. Are we all ever going to be 100% ready? No, because we'll always have different opinions, you know. And so I would kind of I half agree with you. I would like to say, what do you think, listeners? What do you think? Get in touch. Let us know and tell us um and tell us your opinions because everybody's opinion counts unless you're horrible. So, well, it's been nice chatting to you, Gordon.
It has, Andrew.
Yeah, it's been good.
Do
Right.
it again next week.
Let's do it again next week. Yeah, yeah. Flats or heels?
Oh, it's got to be flats.
Okay.